LEED is very important. Without looking at the slide, do you know what LEED means? Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. If you're a LEED specialist, what do you call it? Anybody know? You're LEED what? LEED certified, LEED accredited. So if a person's accredited and a building is certified, I'm John Garland, president of Spectrum Design. That's who we are here, a local A&E firm downtown. Virginia Western doesn't pay me to be here, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about Spectrum, so I'm going to use it as a marketing tool as well, so that you know who we are. We're downtown on the market right across from #1 fire station. We've been in town since 1980, staff of 32. We do all disciplines that you need for a building design all the way across the board. We do a lot of work here at Virginia Western as well. We're doing several new parking lots here, although I couldn't find a place to park. And you've got several new lots that have just been built. We're doing the renovations to the library. We've been LEED accredited since about 2003. One of the first in the area decided that that would be a good thing to do. And about half of our staff is LEED accredited. Some of the buildings we've done that you may be familiar with, some of these were before LEED really hit Roanoke. The old passenger station in downtown Roanoke, across from Hotel Roanoke, is now the O. Winston Link Museum and Visitor Center. If you haven't had a chance to go there, you missed something. It's really good photography downstairs of O. Winston Link, of the old steam locomotives. This was a historic preservation project, which has kind of spurred downtown Roanoke on with all the downtown living. That's a museum on the lower level that you need to go see. One of the first historic preservation projects in downtown Roanoke was the old office building for Norfolk Southern, again across from Hotel Roanoke. That's now a continuing education facility. Virginia Western's over there. It's about 14 colleges and universities. This served as kind of the catalyst for downtown renovations. It was the first historic preservation project that was done in downtown Roanoke that utilized tax credits. The first one I showed you at the passenger station was the second project, and then those are both public projects, and after that the private community got involved with historic preservation. Some interior shots of that same building. This is Virginia Tech's area, study cubicles out in the hallway. I'm going to show you a variety of projects. We do a lot of schools. This was first new school for City of Roanoke in about 30 years that I think Mr. Collins back here worked on. He worked for us. He's now at Virginia Western. And I'm going to show you some projects that aren't LEED certified, but will have some LEED aspects. One of the things that some of our localities are famous for doing is when we design a project, we ask them, encourage them to be LEED certified. They tell us they want to be, they want to utilize LEED principles, but they don't want to be LEED certified because it costs a few dollars more. And to me, that's not the way to do it. You're either going to do it or you're not going to do it. This particular school was done before much of the LEED certification got started in Roanoke. There's actually only one K-12 school in Roanoke, in the whole valley now, that's LEED certified. It's a new one that's just opening for Roanoke County at Mason's Cove. We did not design that one, unfortunately, but that's the first one, so it really hasn't caught on around Roanoke. It has been caught on a lot in other areas of the country, and there are a number of projects here in Roanoke now, so I think schools will come along. This is the art wing of Roanoke Academy. This is over off of Melrose Avenue. It's a K through 5th grade school. Another school that we did about 10 years ago in Bedford County, we built 2 of these. Anybody see the LEED principle on that school? This was, again, before LEED principles started taking over design. Anybody see anything there that would be a good thing to do for LEED? Excuse me?
Is it the windows at the top of the structure?
Yes, bringing daylight in. You know, back in the 70s when they built schools, they closed them all in, had very few windows, and now they've gone back to understanding that having the inside be part of the outside and vice versa is a good thing to do, just like you have in this building here where you can see the Arboretum. The definition of sustainability, basically not doing anything now that's going to harm future generations. So not doing something now that's going to create a building that's going to be an energy hog for future generations, doing it so that we're conserving energy now. So meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generation to meet their own needs. In a lot of ways, a lot of LEED principles are kind of going back to the way my grandma used to do things. It's pretty simple stuff in a lot of ways. So LEED is a system that was developed by the U.S. Green Building Council, and LEED for schools was something that was promoted after the LEED principle started coming out, that was promoted towards buildings. So it's just now getting started on K-12 schools. It's been in higher education for quite some time now because the state requires all higher education projects that are publicly funded to be LEED certified. So like an example, the building that's under construction now across the street will be LEED certified, right? LEED Silver, and that's a requirement of the state of Virginia after you spend so much money on a project. So for higher education, it's going along fine. An example of the number of projects now of schools that have been certified across the country, there's only 379. Again, only one in Roanoke Valley. But you can see there's a number that are registered, so there's a number of them that are coming online here pretty quickly. Another example of Roanoke Academy, the idea of bringing the outside in and using the landscape as part of your design. And again, you see where they go when they want to read a story. They put it up against the window so that they can see the landscaping outside and be part of that daylight instead of being in a closed area inside. Simple things like making the furniture suitable for the age of child that it serves. And again, making it so that the windows are down low so that the outside can come in. The LEED rating system, just to give you an idea of how many members there are out there and accredited professionals. So there's 157,000 LEED accredited professionals now. In 2002, there was 2,400. So that kind of gives you a feel for the sense of the growth of that. And this pie chart down at the bottom shows you the types of buildings that are becoming LEED certified, the biggest chunk being commercial buildings. This is the LEED rating system. You can see it's divided up into 7 categories, and we'll go through each of those categories and give you a flavor of what some of those are. There's prerequisites in each category that you have to meet, and if you don't meet those, you cannot become certified. So everything having to do with site design, whether it be keeping your water on site or using lighting that's appropriate and not spilling over into other properties, to saving water. Another category is saving energy and not polluting the atmosphere with your air conditioning equipment. What you use to build your building out of is materials and resources. Indoor environmental quality, just the pollutants that you create on the inside of the building, that would be in that category. And there's one for innovation and design process that is there for you to come up with good ideas that aren't currently points, that if you come up with a good idea, they'll consider giving you a point for that idea. And this shows you the different levels at the bottom, LEED certified all the way through platinum, and the one here on campus will be the LEED silver. Benefits. One of the biggest benefits and one of the biggest sales for LEED certification is saving money on a monthly basis. We do a lot of life cycle cost analysis where we will compare, as an example, 2 heating and air conditioning systems to one another. One may cost more than the other, but that one that costs more will save energy. So you do a life cycle cost analysis to see how many years it would take to pay back that extra heating and air conditioning cost. And since LEED promotes energy conservation, this is one reason people flock to LEED. Educational benefits, I'll go through some of that. They've done studies to show that if you design a good building with good LEED principles, that you'll have people there more often, you'll have less absenteeism, and you'll have better productivity, whether it be in a school where you learn or whether you be in an office where you have to perform work. And also teaching by example, just being able to demonstrate some of these things that you're doing in a school to motivate others to do something similar. And it can be something simple, and I'll show you some examples of that. And just the community aspect of it, of doing the right thing. And how many people does it affect if you do LEED schools? There's 55 million students and 5 million faculty. So just in schools alone, it affects 20% of the population. So if you can do something good in schools, you're going to affect a lot of people. And over $35 billion spent in tax dollars annually. So again, some localities are promoting that to the point where they're requiring their school systems to be LEED certified. Again, none around here that I can think of, but there are localities that do require that, and a lot of higher education systems that require that. This is the impact that buildings have on the environment. They use 12% of the water. That's low because industry uses the lion's share of water in buildings. Buildings amount to 39% of the CO2 emissions, 65% of the waste output, the garbage that goes out, and 71% of the electricity. So a lot of energy is used with buildings. So if we can do positive things and affect buildings and have a small impact on these numbers, it's going to be a huge effect. So the savings that you can achieve on an average basis if you do a LEED certified building in energy is about 30%. Again, which if you apply that to the number of dollars that go to buildings across the board, across the nation, it's an absolutely huge number. 35% of the CO2 emissions, 30 to 50% of water savings, and 50 to 90% of the waste cost savings, a lot of that during construction. When you build a building, there's just tons and tons of waste that comes from that building construction. And we're easily now on LEED certified buildings getting over 90% of that waste stream recycled to various places. And it's becoming easier and easier to do that. So what USGBC has said in the studies they've done is when you do a LEED certified building, the energy and water costs are going to go down, student health and test scores are going to go up, both very positive things. And what's better than a test score? If you're in a class that they don't test you and don't score you, you're not probably going to be quite as motivated. Same way of LEED certification. So if someone tells me that they want to do LEED principles, but they don't want to be LEED certified, and that's telling me that they're probably not going to work quite as hard at it because they're not going to get a scorecard. Just like you have on a box of animal crackers, what's in it gives you information. Same way with a LEED certified project, you'll get a scorecard that'll tell you how well you've done at each of those 6 main categories on LEED certification. So it's a LEED scorecard that tells you, what grade you got. So in the case studies that LEED USGBC's done on schools, they've studied 30 schools and found on those 30 schools that they saved over 30% of the direct energy cost, 50% of average indirect energy cost. Indirect would be things associated with the energy, the embodied energy that goes into making the materials that build the school, not just the energy that it takes to run the school, and over 30% of the water savings. And again, the average of those studies and had the kids on this particular school show how much that they saved on an average school on an annual basis, and it was nearly $50,000 per school for direct energy savings and a total of $95,000 for total direct savings. So from that study, they were able to determine that on green schools, LEED certified schools, there was a 3% increase in productivity and learning and a 3% decrease in teacher turnover. Again, if you look at the total numbers, that percentage turns into a lot of people that are affected in a good way on both sides. So getting in some of the categories, site selection. When you have to build a new building, one important aspect of it is picking where you're going to build that building. So when you pick a site for your building, some of the things you don't want to do are the things over here on the left-hand side. You don't want to pick a cornfield. You don't want to pick a floodplain and have to fill it up in order so it won't flood. You don't want to pick an endangered species habitat. You don't want to be near a wetland, and you don't want land that was previously a public park. You basically want land that's not suitable for other uses. One thing that the city of Roanoke does, when they pick a site for a new building, they usually pick a site that nobody else wants. We did a fire station in downtown Roanoke on Elm Avenue and Franklin Road, and they picked a site that had been empty for a long time. It was a brownfield. Brownfield's a perfect site to develop on because a brownfield has troubles with that particular site, either due to contamination, oil tanks, gas tanks, that sort of thing, where it's been used for industry in the past and been contaminated. The city used that site because they knew nobody else was going to use it for anything, and it would be a positive to turn that site around, which is what they did. Examples of good things to do, in the 70s and early 80s, the objective of a civil engineer on a site design was to get the water off of the site as quickly as possible and then get it down to a stream. Now the objective is to keep as much of the water on site as possible. So to do that, we're using a lot of vegetation. This is a rain garden that's designed specifically to absorb a lot of water all of a sudden, dry out quickly. So you put plants in there that are tolerant to drought conditions and very wet conditions, using a lot less curb and gutter so that you're not concentrating that water, and trying to keep it on site as much as possible. Encouraging people to carpool, so you designate spots so that the sites closest to the building will be for carpoolers. Providing shower facilities for people that ride their bikes, encouraging alternative transportation instead of vehicular transportation. A slide that USGBC had to promote the bicycle riding, the mass transit, green roofs, daylighting, and that sort of thing. Coupling your school with your community. The tendency in past years has been to make schools bigger and bigger and bigger so that they go outside of the community and you have to travel to get there. Now they're going back to smaller schools, making it more community-based so that you can walk, you can bicycle to your school, and making it more a part of the community feel. Using roofs that don't absorb the light, so using light-colored roofs, and they've gone to material now lately that's white. It's called TPO on mostly flat roofs. Before TPO, they used a black roof that really absorbed the heat. So getting away from materials that absorb heat and going to lighter materials. Using lights that don't shine up, that shine down, that stay on your property. And Virginia Western has been doing that lately. We did the first parking lot we did here on campus. We used LED lights that direct the light directly down, but they also have the advantage that the lamps last a really long time and they use a lot less energy, probably 5% of the energy of previous lights. We just replaced lamps in our office that were track lights that were, they call them MR16. They're an incandescent light source that are 50 watts, and we replaced them with lamps from Lowe's that are 3 watts, and they have the same amount of output. So a huge reduction in the electricity used. Saving water. Lots of things you can do, and you've probably seen those around campus. They can be anything from a waterless urinal to a low flush or dual flush toilet. To recycling water. We've done a couple projects where we capture the rainwater. Again, kind of going back to what grandfather used to do, where you capture the water off the roof, use it for recirculating back to the toilets. It makes no sense to use nice purified water for toilets, so you're starting to see a lot of cisterns. Is there any of those on campus yet, Joe? For toilets? Just using less water at your fixtures, using low water use fixtures. So there's a number of ways to get that achieve low water use, and easy to make 30%. We have lots of projects where we're making 50 or 60% reduction in water use. Building commissioning is part of energy and atmosphere points, and building commissioning is basically just taking a building after it's been built and making sure it performs the way it was designed to perform. So you have someone checking all the mechanical systems to make sure the airflows are proper, All the air conditioning units are performing the way they're supposed to. It's just a demonstration of making sure it's supposed to work the way it's supposed to work. Also, elimination of CFCs in the refrigeration systems. There's been a lot of strides in technology to reduce that. The most common refrigerant prior to now was R22. When that escapes to the atmosphere, you got a lot of CFCs that escape, so they're going to a lot of atmospheric friendly systems. Optimize energy performance. When they look at energy conservation, it's holistic for the whole building. It's not just taking one piece of it. So it's looking at the envelope, whether it be double glazed, triple glazed windows, shading, insulation for walls and roof, your entire envelope of the building to keep the cool air and the hot air inside instead of escaping to the outside. It's also looking at the energy consumption of your heating and air conditioning systems to make sure that you're not overcooling or overheating and that you're doing it very efficiently. And it's also looking at your electrical systems, whether it be your lighting, making sure that your lighting is using, you're not having more lighting than you need to have, but you're also having lights that are very energy efficient. And controlling that light and making sure that it goes off at appropriate times, so when there's no one in the room, it goes off. And you probably do have some of that here on campus, a lot of sensors now. One of the heating and air conditioning systems that we've gone to a lot in the past, we've been using it about 10 years, is geothermal. This is a geothermal system under construction at one of our schools, and you basically take a drilling rig that you use for a private well, and that rig drills a hole about 300 feet deep, 6 inches in diameter, and then they place a 1-inch pipe that goes down into the hole that's looped at the bottom and comes back up the hole. So it's just a loop of pipe that goes down the hole, and they backfill the drilled hole with a clay material, and then it's just a conduit then for water to go down in that hole and come in contact with the earth that stays at about 55 degrees. So you can compare it to your heat pump that you might have at your house, where you have an outside unit that's trying to cool by getting cooling out of 90-degree air, or in the winter it's trying to heat and trying to get heat out of 30 or 35-degree air. This is doing the same thing, except it's doing a 55-degree ground temperature. So it's more consistent, closer temperature, what your actual temperature you're trying to achieve. So it's much more efficient than a regular heat pump. The first one that we did was at a school up in Rockbridge County, Fairfield Elementary School. Again, this is under construction. So this is drilling the holes in the ground. We had about 100 holes that were drilled for this school. These are the indoor heat pumps that utilize the ground for its heat sink. And we put that in, and it paid for itself in about 3 years. And because of that, Rockbridge County decided every school after that was going to be geothermal. And we've done 2 more for them since then. This is just a shot of mechanical room in that Roanoke Academy School, doing things such as making sure that your equipment is accessible so that the filters are clean. Will improve indoor quality. It will improve energy efficiency, just because someone's going to change them instead of being hid somewhere where you can't get to. This puts the equipment outside the classrooms. It puts the equipment so it's not outside, all of which makes the equipment last longer and be more efficient. Green roofs. Green roofs are starting again in Roanoke to come back again. They used to do them years ago, back in the 20s and 30s. A green roof was a fairly common thing in a city. Has not been a common thing for a long time, but there's starting to be green roofs pop up across the city now, and many of them under design and contractors that know how to do them. Part of what you have to do for LEED is recycle inside your building, so you have to have a designated area for recycle. That's a prerequisite. Construction waste management. Nationally, about 20% of municipal waste comes from construction demolition, and again, you can achieve over 90% recycle of that material. If you go on construction sites now in Roanoke, a good percentage of them now are trying to recycle. It's not only a benefit for the environment, but it's also they get money off of it too. We did a building downtown, a small building, that they salvaged all the metal in the building from the demolition process and got about $10,000 from Cycle Systems in recycled metal. So it's a profitable endeavor too.